Hi, good morning, friends. Um, Happy Wednesday. I believe it's Wednesday. Happy Wednesday. And just feel grateful to be here again this morning at 7 a.m. And I hope that many of you that feel called to this practice are able to join in live and share this time together. I've been really reflective about this, sharing this each morning, declaring this commitment to sit each morning in this virtual way. And as I've been just reflecting on that and feeling into that, it really does feel right. And there's something that is, it feels like in this practice that there's something really positive growing out of this challenge that we're all facing. And for that, I'm really grateful, and I feel that in itself is a blessing. So as I've been reflecting after each meditation, I really am listening into what is next, what's next to share, and we've talked about we really started out this whole meditation exploration about a week ago with this conversation around the space between the stimulus and the response, and that as I've been reflecting into that is that this notion that there's this space between what happens to us, that arousal of the unexpected, and then there's how we respond to it, the action we take, whether that's to fight, flight, freeze, and in the higher cases, we're even able to go beyond fight, flight, or freeze, but we're actually able to make harmony with or blend with the situation. And then we started to explore, what's between the stimulus and the response. What's available to us between the stimulus and this response as we start to open that space, this space of choice. And what keeps coming back to me is the Viktor Frankl quote, which landed on me so many years ago. Between the stimulus and the response, there is a space. In that space lies our ability to choose our response. And it is in those choices that lie our growth and our happiness. And often when I'm challenged or I'm in my own provocation, those words will help me. I'll repeat them like a mantra, and they'll help me settle in. They'll help me relax in mentally, and then I'll be able to center in my body somatically, like we practiced yesterday. And so I pass those words on in the hopes that they stir something positive in you, and if they're helpful to you, that you can use them as your own mantra, your own way to create that space. We've talked about what's between this stimulus and the response, and we talked about there is this amazing ability in that inner freedom, that internal freedom. We have this amazing ability to access our conscience, to access our self-awareness and our somatic self-awareness. We're able to access our imagination and our creativity, which is something that I'm really feeling drawn to really explore in a few days from now, is the creativity in that internal freedom. And so I'll share more about that later. And we're able to access our ability to choose and take action. That we have the ability to have that independent will to do to do what we feel is right based on our value system and our ethics. We're not just the sum total of old behavior patterns. We have this amazing ability, and what we're doing in these meditations is we're expanding that internal space, and we're expanding that whole space of choice. And so, as often, I think you've heard me, if you've been listening into some of these meditations, we've been doing a mood check each morning. And often or I've just shared before the mood check or after the mood check, to meet your mood with, in the absence of judgment, attachment, and resistance. And those are powerful mind, body, or distinctions in terms of moving into that state of internal freedom. And as I was reflecting, I realized that in the course of my learning and my own studies, that I came upon those distinctions with 3 parables. And what is powerful is there's a parable, a story, that connects to each one of those states of awareness, which are non-judgment, non-attachment, non-resistance. And what can be powerful about that is oftentimes, we can learn some new knowledge, but if we can attach a story to it, a story or a parable to it, then it can have even deeper meaning, and it may have more accessibility under trying times. And so for me, each one of these parables I came across when I was listening and studying the book A New Earth by Eckhart Tolle. These 3 parables he shared were really powerful, and so I'd like to share them today, or share one of them today, and then the second one tomorrow, and the third one the following day, before we start to move into the study of creativity and imagination. So I'd like to share that with you right now. This is the parable of non-attachment. And it goes like this. According to an ancient Sufi story, there lived a king in some Middle Eastern land who was continually torn between happiness and despondency. The slightest thing would cause him great upset or provoke an intense reaction, and his happiness would quickly turn into disappointment and despair. A time came when the king finally became tired of himself and of life, and he began to seek a way out. He sent for a wise man who lived in his kingdom and was reputed to be enlightened. When the wise man came, the king said to him, "I want to be like you. Can you give me something that can bring balance, serenity, and wisdom into my life? I will pay you any price you ask." The wise man said, "I may be able to help you, but the price is so great that your entire kingdom would not be sufficient payment for it. Therefore, I will give it to you as a gift if you will honor it." The king gave his assurances, and the wise man left. A few weeks later, he returned and handed the king an ornate box carved in jade. The king opened the box and found a simple gold ring inside. Some letters were inscribed on the ring. The inscription read, "This too will pass." "What is the meaning of this?" asked the king. The wise men said, "Wear this ring always. Whatever happens before you call it good or bad, touch this ring and read the inscription." That way, you will always be at peace. So that is the story or the parable that connects to this state of awareness of non-attachment. And when I first read that, or I first heard that, I believe it was on an audiobook, and then later transcribed it. It really was a powerful story, but also became for me a powerful practice. So much so that on one of my excursions on a kayaking trip, that parable kept coming to me, and I stopped into a jeweler up in Bayfield, and I picked up this ring on my right hand. Sometimes people ask me why I have a ring on my right hand, and this ring represents that parable to me. And so for years now, I've been in the practice of, at the most challenging moments of my life, I touch this ring and I say, this too will pass. And that is powerful, and that helps build resilience in challenging times. But what was really completely fresh and completely new for me was I also began to touch this ring and recite those words even at the most wonderful moments of my life. And that had never occurred to me to create non-attachment with those mountaintop amazing moments. And what this practice taught me, whether I was in the most challenging time of my life or I was in the most amazing experience of my life, that I was teaching myself that what is consistent through it all is this flow of life, and not to get overly attached to challenging situations, because they will transform and move on. And even those wonderful moments, that to enjoy them as in the present moment, and to enjoy them, but not to get attached to them, because they too will pass as well. And to start to bring attention to the lived experience of the process of life. We could even say from yesterday, to be present to that somatic first-person experience of life as the different waves move up to happiness and joy and challenge and hardship, that there's a way, that there is through it all, that there is a way that we enjoy the experience of life, versus whether it happens to be a very happy time or a really challenging time. And so that parable really landed on me and turned into a concrete symbol and a practice that has now become just part of who I am. So as we move into these centering practices, and I say, meet this moment, or meet your mood without judgment, attachment, or resistance, that's a parable I just wanted to offer everyone that perhaps could be helpful in your life, so that as we go through this experience and future experiences, it may provide something that's helpful. So let's begin our meditation today, and starting with our centering practice. So let's start with a mood check, noticing your mood. I feel happy. I feel my mood is, I feel very optimistic. So notice what the mood is that's living in you. Start to feel into our bodies from that first person somatic point of view. Notice the temperature that you're feeling right now, and I feel somewhat cool. Notice the movement of the energy in your body. Do you feel like you're expanding, or you feel like you're contracting or buzzing, tingling? Right now I feel this, if I really feel in on a somatic level, I really feel like I'm expanding, getting bigger, filling the room. That's my felt sense. And bring attention to your felt sense of weight. Do you feel like you're light as you're standing, laying, or sitting? Or do you feel heavy? And I feel extremely light this morning. And of course, we're meeting that awareness without judgment, attachment, or resistance. It's just information coming into our awareness to help us navigate our lives, help us to navigate, understand this moment, make decisions. And bring your attention to your felt sense of texture. Do you feel a felt sense of being rough, jagged, smooth, sharp? I feel very smooth this morning. Wasn't so yesterday morning. And feel into your felt sense of shape. Feel into your length from top to bottom. Do you feel tall? Do you feel like you're compressed? Somewhere in between? I feel very tall this morning without trying. My vertical line is lifting. Feel into your width from left to right. This social emotional plane. Do you feel wide and expansive from left to right, or do you feel kind of contracted? What's your body saying this morning? This morning I feel very wide and open. That's my felt sense on a somatic level. And also as I just take my attention and rest it gently onto the screen, onto the phone screen, that's what I'm starting to observe from the outside in, is that my chest is open and I also feel open internally. So you could be in that same practice in the phone and a mirror to feel in and see if that outside view of your body lines up with your internal experience. And let's feel into our depth from front to back, this somatic experience of time, of past, at our back, present, and future, the future in the space in front of us. Do you feel like you're more leaning forward into what's to come? Do you feel more like you're leaning back into what has happened? Or do you feel like you're centered? You're just here, you're just in the now. And again, we're meeting that without judgment, attachment, or resistance. Sometimes I'll feel that I'm ahead of myself, I'm leaning in. And if I meet that without judgment, attachment, or resistance, I can listen into what my body is saying, and I can say, what am I anticipating? What am I anticipating? And then I'll feel into that, and I'll be like, oh, yeah, I've got this really, challenging conversation later on today. And then that awareness, I can then center back into that, acknowledge that. So in some ways, my body is educating my mind. And then once I listen in to what's going on an unconscious level, and I make it conscious, then my body will often start to relax and I can come back into the present. But if I just get into a tug of war with myself, like, why am I forward, and become resistant or attached or judgmental, I can just get in an internal battle with myself. So we can listen to ourselves. And just center in here. I invite you to close your eyes as we begin to enter our meditation this morning. And as you close your eyes, set your intention. Remind yourself for the sake of what that you're doing this practice. So we're connecting our bodily, our somatic practice with what we care about. Be empty of worrying. Think who created the thought. Why do you stay in prison when the door is wide open? Move outside the tangle of fear, thinking. Live in silence, flowing down and down into always widening rings of being. Be empty of worrying. Think who created the thought. Why do you stay in prison when the door is wide open? Move outside the tangle of fear, thinking. Live in silence, flowing down and down into always widening rings of being. As we close our practice today, remind yourself again for the sake of what? And if you are feeling like this meditation, you need to stay in this meditation, I encourage you to just continue to stay in the practice. And if you're ready to complete, I invite you to slowly move your arms and legs. And then very gently and very slowly begin to open your eyes and let the outside world come back in again. take a moment to notice your mood right now. Noticing if your mood has shifted. My mood has really moved into a more relaxed and grounded space. It's a different experience. And just notice what that is for you. Again, meeting that awareness without judgment, attachment, or resistance. And becoming aware that all of us through this practice have created more space between the stimulus and the response. We've cultivated more internal freedom, especially in this time of external uncertainty. So thank you all for spending this time together in the morning, this Wednesday morning. And I hope the parable was helpful, the parable of non-attachment. Tomorrow I'm going to explore the parable and the state of consciousness of non-resistance. And then the following day of non-judgment. So Friday would be non-judgment. And then after that, I'll keep just listening in, reflecting in, but my sense is I'd like to start to move into a 12-day study on creativity, because right now, more than ever, we need inspired creativity. Some of the old ways that we've been doing things are no longer useful, and the more in this space that we're creating, this internal freedom, the more we can cultivate our inspired creativity, the more we're going to help in our own lives, in our communities, in our country, and in the world, bring in the new creative ideas that are going to pave the way forward. That's what I'm envisioning, and that's what I'd like to share. So blessings to all of you. So great to see many of you meditating live this morning. I see Ann and Jeff and Michael, and I see my mom watching. I see Molly, and I see Darlene. So blessings to all of you, and blessings to all of you that will listen to the recording and sit at a later date. We'll see you tomorrow at 7 a.m. as we continue this exploration into internal freedom. Bye for now.